श्री गणेशाय नमः। श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांशहस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्। सुखं नित्यं स्वप्रकाशं व्यापकं नामरूपयोः अधिष्ठानं बुद्ध्यबोध्यं बुद्धेर्दृग्यत्तु निर्मलम् अपारं सर्ववेदान्त वेद्यं प्रत्यक्परं महः तदेवाहं न मत्तोऽन्यत इति मे निश्चिता मतिः। A question was raised, is it possible to gain pratyaksha jnana? Now I am again, as I said earlier, I am going to keep word pratyaksha, even though it refers, in case of Brahma Jnana it refers to aparoksha. In common terminology, let's keep that word pratyaksha, because it is going to be applied to many others also. So pratyaksha jnana of Brahman, direct knowledge of Brahman, is not possible. Why is it not possible? Because direct knowledge is possible only when the knowledge takes place through sense organs. And Brahman is not an object of sense organs, for which a discussion was given, and it was said that even if you argue that avatars such as Rama, Krishna, etc., who themselves are Brahman, embodied, personified in form, Brahman in form, yet it is not pratyaksha jnana of Brahman. Why? Because what we are seeing through our eyes or senses is the embodiment, the body, avatar, sharira, and not Brahman. Of course, there are differences from its general body or sharira of jiva, gross body of jiva, and gross body taken up by avatars. What is the difference? The jiva's embodiment is out of ignorance, made up of grossified five elements, and avatara sharira is out of Ishvara's sheer will. He wills, he desires, and because of which he appears in a form in front of us, and he is nitya mukta. It is not because of ignorance. A body taken up by jiva is according to his own karma, and his own karma in any body, as long as he is ignorant, is going to yield him new body, new janma, next birth. But that is not the case in case of Ishvara or avatara sharira. Why? Because they are nitya mukta. They don't have to gain knowledge to become liberated or become mukta. To gain moksha, avatars don't have to gain knowledge. But for jiva, it is necessary that he must have Brahma Sakshatkara. Then and then alone he will be able to gain Brahma Jnana. Then and then alone he will be mukta. After having analyzed this and proven that Brahman cannot be object of knowledge for eyes, now other senses are being brought forth. It is said, Brahma tvagindriyasya na vishayaha. Brahman is not an object of knowledge for tvagindriya. Tvagindriya, touch, skin. Why? Tvagindriyantu sparsha tadashraya dravyancha vishayi karoti. What does skin do? Skin can objectify only those objects which are in its own scope or field. Only that which can be touched can be known through skin. ब्रह्म तु न स्पर्शरूपं नापि स्पर्शस्य आश्रयः. Brahman is neither object of, like, it cannot be touched, neither it forms substratum for touch. Ashraya is not, or sparsha, that which can be touched, is not quality of Brahman. Sparshasya ashrayah. Gunashrayatvam dravyatvam. That is the definition given by Nayayikas. Again, that's a different discussion by itself. But understand here what author is trying to say, or what is being explained here is, because Brahman cannot be touched, it cannot be known through sense organ, that is our skin, tvagindriya. Ataha na brahmana tvagindriya vishayatvam. That's why it is not an object of knowledge for our skin. Brahman is not an object of knowledge for our skin. And so also same is the case with other senses. Brahma na rasana grahana shrotranam vishayah. Brahman does not become an object of knowledge for others, that is rasana, tongue, that is taste, for taste, grahana, smell, sense of smell, nose, and shrotra, ears. Rasanendriyena rasadjnanam, pranendriyena gandhajnanam, shrotrena shabdajnanam cha jayate. What all type of knowledge takes place through all these sense organs? By tongue we taste, by nose we smell, and by ears we hear sound. Rasagandha shabdebhyo vilakshanam Brahma. Brahman is different from all these. How can you say so? It has been told in Upanishads, in Veda. Tasmat rasana grahana shrotraihi brahmanaha jnanam na jayate. Brahman cannot be known through tongue, nose, ears. Why? Ashabdamasparshamaroopamavyayam tatha rasam nityamagandha vacchayata. Kathopanishad. It is a shabda. It is not any sound or known through shabda, that is ears. Asparsha, it cannot be touched. Arupa, it does not have any form. Avyaya, it is immovable. It does not decay. It does not undergo any change. Nityam, it is eternal. Agandhavat, you cannot smell Brahman. And again, additionally, it has been said, Paranchikhani vyatrunat swayam bhuhu tasmat parang pashyati nantaratman. There is a default mechanism in our senses. What is it? Paranchikhani. They are extroverted by nature. And because our sense organs are extroverted by nature, why? Because the objects which can be known through senses are outside. Therefore, they have to be, our sense organs need to be extroverted, because that's where their function lies. And because our sense organs are extroverted and Atma is inner, it's not outside, it is within this body, and within this body it is pratyak, not parak. It is innermost, all pervasive. And because it is innermost, inside, therefore those extroverted sense organs cannot know Brahman. Brahmana indriya vishayatvam bodhyate. By all these Upanishad statements, it is proved and it is known that Brahman is not an object of knowledge for senses. Brahma karmendriyanamapya vishayah. It is not an object of knowledge for organs of action. Of course it is not. Why? Karmendriyam na jnana sadhanam. Organs of action are not means of knowledge. Kintu vachanadi kriya sadhana. As the name suggests, as the name itself explains, they are means to perform an action and not gaining knowledge. Tasmat कर्मेन्द्रियैः न कस्यचिदपि ज्ञानं जायते. Therefore, by organs of action, no knowledge can take place. Itham न केनापि इंद्रियेण ब्रह्मणः ज्ञानं जायते. In this way, by none of these organs or knowledge of Brahman, none of the organs of action, knowledge of Brahman can take place. Indriyajanyameva jnanam pratyakshamityuchyate. Indriyajanyam jnanam, knowledge gained through indriyas, is referred to as called as pratyaksha, direct. Tadeva aparoksham iti cha kirtyate. Now this is again all Purvapaksha. Tadeva aparoksham iti cha kirtyate, and that which is referred to as pratyaksha, that alone is referred to as aparoksha in case of Brahman. So tasmat, therefore, Brahmanaha aparoksha jnanam naiva sambhavati. Direct knowledge of Brahman is not possible. शब्देन तु यद्यपि ब्रह्मज्ञानम् उत्पद्यते, तथापि शाब्दज्ञानस्य परोक्षत्वात् शब्दजन्य ब्रह्मज्ञानं परोक्षमेव भवेत्. Even though by shabda pramana, Upanishadic statements, Mahavakya, etc., when that Mahavakya is heard through our ears, the knowledge that takes place, that cannot be pratyaksha or aparoksha. Why? Any knowledge which is through ears, when it is known, shabdena tu yadyapi brahmajnana utpadyate. Let there be brahmajnana which is gained, may brahmajnanam be gained by listening to Mahavakya, but that knowledge is not aparoksha, but it is paroksha. Why? Purvapaksha says it is so because Shabda can generate Paroksha Jnana alone. Now, all this argument is now going to be refuted. Purvokta Prashnasya Uttaram. The question which was raised very much in the beginning of this whole discussion is now going to be answered. The question was simple, or the argument is very much simple. To summarize, it is said that Brahman cannot be known directly. Direct knowledge of Brahman is not possible. Why? Direct knowledge can be gained only through means of sense organs. Only when sense organs are used as means of knowledge, Brahmajnana can be gained. For our Brahman is not an object of knowledge for our sense organs. Therefore, Brahman cannot become pratyaksha. And because Brahman cannot be pratyaksha, knowledge of Brahman cannot be pratyaksha jnana. Now, answer is going to start from a different route, different path. The answer is not going to come very much direct. He is first going to establish. Now, first thing is to establish that it is not necessary that indriyas are required. Indriyas are invariable part or invariable means for direct knowledge. How so? Let's see. Sukha dukhadehe sakshi bhasyatvadindriya sambandham vina प्रत्यक्ष ज्ञानम न जायते इति नियमो नास्ति. दिस इज नॉट द रूल. इति नियमः नास्ति. सुख दुःखादेः साक्षिभाष्यत्वादि साक्षिभाष्यत्वात् इंद्रिय संबंधं विना प्रत्यक्ष ज्ञानम न जायते इति नियमः नास्ति. सुख एंड दुःख, they being Sakshi Bhasya, being illumined by Sakshi, and they are not known through Indriyas. Pratyaksha jnana of Sukha and Dukkha is impossible. Such is not the case. Do we experience happiness and sorrows? Yes, we do experience happiness and sorrows. Which sense organs do we use to experience happiness and sorrow? Not the objects which give us happiness and sorrow. The objects are experienced through our senses, but the idea or the experience of joy and sorrow, or the experiences of joys and sorrows, are inside. They are not outside in form of any object. How can you say? Let's analyze here and here itself, because it is a very beautiful and important point. Although we have analyzed this earlier, let's understand again. Any object, it is source of joys and sorrows, but it is not Sukha and Dukkha, joys and sorrows itself. How so? Let's say this is a mobile. Now, this is an instrument to give me joy or sorrow. Based on my mental capacity or mental structure, emotional structure, at that particular moment, this instrument will be cause of joy or sorrow. If this was happiness or this was joy or sorrow, the experience would not have changed any time at all. I would have had same experience with this object. Simple. The argument is simple. If you say this instrument is itself is joy, Sukha is a vastu, an object. It is not so. We don't see any object called as happiness, joy or sorrow outside. Then how do we know that? How do we experience them? Through our antahkarana vritti within this body itself. How is that antahkarana vritti generated? It is generated through sense organs. When those sense organs come in contact with any particular object. But that does not mean that object itself is joy or sorrow, because joy and sorrow is not the nature of that object. It is my mind which determines that is that experience falls, does that experience falls in the category of joy or sorrow. Let's see. Indriya sambandham vina pratyaksha jnanam na udeti iti niyamah nasti. Let's clarify one thing first. Guru is answering. Pratyaksha jnana, direct knowledge, is gained only through sense organs, is not a niyama. It's not a rule. Sukha dukkhadehe jnanam na kenapi indriyena janyate. Yes, joys and sorrows are experienced without any intermediary sense organs. Without sense organs, without the help of assistance of sense organs. Tathapi, yet sukha-dukhadehe jnanam pratyakshamev. Those experiences of joys and sorrows are direct experiences, pratyaksha jnana alone. That knowledge is pratyaksha alone, direct alone. Why? तस्मात् इंद्रिय संबंधजन्यं ज्ञानमेव प्रत्यक्ष ज्ञानम् इति न नियमः। किन्तु यदा विषयेण वृत्तिः संबद्धा विषयाकारा भवति तदा प्रत्यक्ष ज्ञानं जायते इत्युच्यते। Then what is प्रत्यक्ष ज्ञान? यदा विषयेण वृत्तिः संबद्धा विषयाकारा भवति। विषयेण संबद्धा वृत्तिः. When, again, understand here, this is a very important point. When that antahkarana vritti which has gone out through our sense organs comes in contact with object of knowledge and becomes the replica of that object. So sambandha vishyakara bhavati. At that time, pratyaksha jnana, direct knowledge takes place. So vishaya and vishyakara vritti, jnana vritti are ekadeshastha, are in one and the same place. They are not in two different loci. It is in one locus alone. And this is a very important point. To clarify and to understand why is it important to understand this in this way is, look here. Actually, again, this is again a point of discussion between Nyaya Darshana and Vedanta in terms of how Brahmajnana takes place, or how knowledge takes place. Nayayikas have said Indriya Sannikarsha Jnanam Pratyaksham. Only when Indriyas come in contact with object of knowledge, it is Pratyaksha Jnana. A very simple definition. But they have not in detail, in depth analyzed vrittis, etc. as Vedanta has analyzed, or later darshanas have analyzed. How so? Why do we need this vritti and this whole analysis? Simple. This object is in front of my eyes. But because it is in front of my eyes, by general logic it can be said that my eyes have come in contact with this object. Yet, if my focus is somewhere else, even though the object is in front of me, it is not known. Many times this is our experience. We are trying to find something even though the object is in front of us. Yet we don't know that object. Why? Because vritti exactly replicating that object, exactly in form of that object, has not taken place. So when object is in front of me, and then and there the tadakara vritti has taken place, at that time the knowledge which is gained is pratyaksha. Now, why do we need to go through this whole thing? Because we had to clarify what is paroksha, what is indirect also. Why so? Let's see. This direct knowledge can be gained in two different ways. विषयेण सह वृत्तेः संबंधः क्वचित् इन्द्रियद्वारा भवति, क्वचिच्च शब्देन भवति. Now, this vritti coming in contact with object of knowledge is possible via two different means. Either it can be through sense organs, which is well known, which we experience every day, all the time. And sometimes it is also possible through Shabda. Shabda, verbal testimony, or words or sentence which is uttered by someone and which is heard by us. Dashamattvamasi ityatra शब्दात् जायमानान्तःकरणवृत्तिः दशमेन स्वात्मना संबद्धा दशमाकारा भवति. तस्मात् शब्दजन्यज्ञानमपि शब्दजन्यदशमज्ञानमपि प्रत्यक्षमेव. Very, very beautiful point and very, very important point. How can you say so? Simple. When it was uttered in that story, the 10th person, you are that 10th man. Knowledge has taken place, I am that 10th man. Now, I experienced myself, I came to know myself as I am that 10th man. But was that whole analysis referring to this body? No. I never said this body is 10th man. Again, if how funny it would have sounded, or how it would have been idiotic to say that this body is 10th man, but I am not the 10th man. No. What do you understand? I am 10th man. I am the 10th man which was lost. And how did we come to this understanding? How did we come to this knowledge? By sentence which was uttered, that is Shabda. You are the 10th man. So, with the help of that Shabda, or Shabda as means, Shabda Jnana as means, an Antahkarana Vritti was born, which came in contact with its object of knowledge, that is me, myself. And when it came in contact with that object, it became Dashamakara. Why? Because that's how was the Upadesha, the teaching. The 10th man was the teaching. You are the 10th man, that you are. When it came in contact with me, myself, it changed to I am. And the Vritti took form, I am the 10th man. Therefore, Pratyaksha Jnana can be gained through Shabda also. Tathaiva, in the same way, Pramatari Sukhadukha Dyutpatti Kale Antahkarana Vrittihi Sukhakara Dukhakara cha bhavati. So, at the time of experiencing joys and sorrows, while we are undergoing experiences of joys and sorrows, our mind has become, mind has modified, or antahkarana has modified into those particular vrittis, into those particular thoughts. Whether it is of sukha or dukkha, joy or sorrow. Taya vrittya saha sukha dukkhadehe sambandhaha jayate. And with that vritti, sukha dukkhadehe sambandha jayate. Sukha and dukkha, they come in contact. Tasmat sukha dukkhadehe jnanam pratyaksha jnanam ityuchyate. Therefore, the knowledge, experiences of joys and sorrows are said to be pratyaksha. पूर्वोत्पन्न सुखदुःखादेः नाशानन्तरं यदा पुरुषस्य तादृश सुखदुःखादिज्ञानं जायते तदा सुखदुःखाद्याकारा अन्तःकरणवृत्तिरुदेति, किन्तु तस्याः वृत्तेः नष्ट सुख दुःखादिना संबंधः नास्ति, अतः तज्ज्ञानं स्मृति रूपं न प्रत्यक्ष रूपम्. Very much simple. Let me give you an example so it will become clear. Let's say in prasada you go to a temple and everybody is being given peanuts and sugar. Sometimes they mix that groundnuts and sugar and they give as prasada. But by the time you reach there, that has finished. So they give you laddu. Now, when you eat that laddu, you are happy. Why? Because you got something special. Now, when you are eating that laddu, you experience joy and sorrow. Why are you experiencing joy and sorrow? Because the object which generated that experience of joy and sorrow is with you, is there. So joy and sorrow is being experienced. If you want to use our colloquial term, it is live experience. It is not recorded experience. At that time, when that antahkarana vritti becomes sukhakara or dukkhakara, that experience, that knowledge that I am happy or I am sorrowful is pratyaksha jnana. But after you come home, the days have passed by and you remember how happy you were. It is not live experience, but it is recorded experience. And because it is recorded, there is no direct contact with happiness. Even though you yourself have generated that happiness experience, but it is mental. It is out of your own imagination, or rather than imagination, out of your own memory. And because that experience is out of your own memory, the cause for your antahkarana becoming sukhakara or dukkhakara, the cause being memory and not actual experience, that is smriti rupa. That is just smriti and not pratyaksha. So, while experiencing happiness and sorrows, that experience or the knowledge of that experience, why am I saying knowledge of that experience? Because even though we are experiencing, we say I am happy. We never say I am experiencing happiness. Experience and knowledge, in reality, they are not two different words. Again, so atah tajnanam smriti rupam na pratyaksha rupam. Therefore, that is smriti rupa, out of memory, and not pratyaksha. यद्यपि अंतःकरणधर्माः सुखदुःखादयः साक्षिभास्याः तथापि सुखाकार दुःखाकारान्तःकरणवृत्तिद्वारैव साक्षी सुखदुःखादीन् प्रकाशयति. Let me read this whole paragraph and then explain, because it is just continuous progression. साक्षिभास्य पदार्थमपि साक्षी वृत्तिम् अपेक्षैव प्रकाशयति. साक्षी वृत्तिम् अपेक्षैव प्रकाशयति. तथा हि शुक्तिरजतं साक्षिभास्यमेव. तत्रापि साक्षी अविद्यावृत्तिम् अपेक्षैव रजतं प्रकाशयति. परन्तु सुखदुःखादि प्रकाशने अंतःकरणवृत्तिः साक्षिणः सहायभूता. मिथ्यारजतादि प्रकाशने अविद्यावृत्तिः साक्षिणः सहायभूता. इत्थं साक्षिभास्य पदार्थ ज्ञाने अपि वृत्तिः आवश्यकी. सा वृत्तिः यत्र इंद्रियादि बाह्य साधनजन्या तत्र तस्याः वृत्तेः विषयः साक्षिभास्य इत्युच्यते. सुखदुःखादि विषयक वृत्तौ बाह्येन्द्रियादिकं न कारणम् अपितु सुखदुःखाद्युत्पत्ति समये साधनान्तरापेक्षां विनैव सुखाकारा दुःखाकारा च अंतःकरणवृत्तिः जायते। तस्यां वृत्तौ आरूढ़ः साक्षी सुखदुःखादीन् प्रकाशयति। अतः सुखदुःखादिकं साक्षिभाष्यमित्युच्यते। Simple. Experiences of happiness and sorrow which are in our mind are illumined by Sakshi. They are revealed to us by Sakshi. Now this whole analysis is further going to go to how Brahmajnana takes place. But what is being explained here is you experience happiness and sorrow in your own mind. That vritti which has become sukhakara and dukkhakara needs to be illumined. But unlike objects outside which were being illumined by Chidabhasa, that Vishakara vritti was illumined by Chidabhasa. But this Sukhadukhadi Vishakara Antahkarana vritti or Sukhakara Dukkhakara Antahkarana vritti is being illumined by Sakshi itself. And how Sakshi is illumining this? Through that Antahkarana vritti, by means of that Antahkarana vritti. It cannot directly illumine, it has to take some support. Sakshi bhasya padarthamapi sakshi vrittim apeksheva. Tatha in the same way, shukti rajatam sakshi bhasyameva. That shell silver, that apparent silver, which was seen in that shell, is illumined by Sakshi alone. Tatrapi, there also, Sakshi avidyavrittim apekshaiva rajatam prakashayati. How is that silver being illumined? Through means of ignorance, avidyavritti. Sakshi cannot directly illumine. Sakshi forms the substratum for that avidyavritti. That avidyavritti generates or gives birth to rajata, and in that way, through avidyavritti, Sakshi illumines rajata, shell silver. But for illumining happiness and sorrow, that antahkarana vritti, that thought modification, has been helpful for Sakshi. For illumining shell silver, avidyavritti was helpful. Avidyavritti acted as means or instrumental. It was so avidyavritti was instrumental for illumining shell silver. Antahkarana vritti was instrumental in illumining sukha and dukkha. Where that sukha dukkha vritti is born through sense organs, there tasyaha vrittehe vishayah sakshibhasyah ityuchyate. The object of knowledge for that vritti is illumined by Sakshi. Sukhadukhadi vishayaka vrittau bahyendriyadikam na karanam. And for that vritti, bahyendriya, our external sense organs, do not directly do not direct cause for sukha and dukkha. Apitu सुखदुःखाद्युत्पत्ति समये साधनान्तरापेक्षां विना एव सुखदुःखा सुखाकारा दुःखाकारा च अंतःकरण वृत्ति जायते. Without those sense organs alone itself, mind becomes joyful or sorrowful. How so? Again, going back to our earlier analysis, when you are eating that laddu or when you taste that laddu, you have experienced taste. But to categorize that experience as joyful or sorrowful is solely dependent on you yourself or your own mind. Then there, that experience within our mind is objectified as experience of happiness or sorrow. Now this objectification is not by indriyas. Why? Because indriyas, see, our five sense organs, they are capable of giving just experience. Very beautiful point to reflect upon. What are you experiencing when you are eating that laddu? You are experiencing just taste. Neither happiness nor sorrow. Happiness and sorrow comes later. And because such is the case, you can be impartial with each and every experience. You can be sama. If that happiness and sorrow was generated by sense organ, then it would not have been possible to be impartial throughout our daily routine. That's why it is said that external sense organs do not generate happiness and sorrow. That happiness and sorrow is generated within our mind itself. And that becomes an object of knowledge for vritti which follows and which becomes sukhakara and dukkhakara. Now the object which has formed inside or vritti which has formed inside as an object of knowledge which is going to give me joy and sorrow, that is being illumined by Sakshi. And how is that being illumined? That is being illumined through that particular sukhakara, dukkhakara, antahkarana vritti. Therefore, sukha and dukkha is called as Sakshi Bhasya, that which is illumined by Sakshi. Now, ब्रह्मज्ञानस्य प्रत्यक्षत्वोपपत्तिः तत्वदृष्टेः भेदभ्रमनिवृत्तिश्च. Okay. How can you now the topic is being concluded. Brahmajnanasya pratyakshatopapattih. Brahmajnana is pratyaksha. Brahmajnana can become pratyaksha, or Brahman can be known directly. And by answering this, all doubts in the mind of Tattva-drishti, that the first Shishya, we had seen that story of king who had those sons, one of them started asking questions, that's whole analysis is going to be concluded. बाह्य घटादिभिः सह अंतःकरण वृत्तेः संबंधः नेत्रादीन्द्रिय द्वारा जायते इति घटादयः न साक्षिभास्याः. अंतःकरण वृत्ति यदा ब्रह्माकारा भवति तदा सा वृत्तिः न बहिर्गच्छति किन्तु शरीरस्यान्तरेव वर्तते. तया वृत्त्या सह ब्रह्मणः संबंधः अस्ति. तस्मात् ब्रह्मज्ञानमपि सुखदुःखादि ज्ञानमिव प्रत्यक्ष रूपम भवति. We have already analyzed that experience of sukha and dukkha. We have already analyzed that experience of sukha and dukkha is pratyaksha, direct experience. The knowledge is pratyaksha, direct knowledge. Why? object and vritti, they are in one place being illumined by Sakshi. When vritti goes outside, engulfs the object which is outside, that is pot, and when pot is illumined, there that object is not Sakshi Bhasya. It is Chidabhasa Bhasya, illumined by Chidabhasa. But when our Antahkarana becomes Brahmakara, the exact replica of Brahman, that vritti doesn't have to go somewhere outside. It is inside itself. Why? Because its object is me, myself. It is inside. And when that Antahkarana vritti becomes Brahmakara, it comes in contact with my own true self, that is Brahman. Taya vrittya sa brahmana sambandhasti. So it has come in contact. So object and vritti, they have come in contact with each other. Therefore, Brahman is known directly. Why? Because this whole falls in the category under the definition of Pratyaksha Jnana. Again, what was the definition of Pratyaksha Jnana? Where object and that Tadakara Antahkarana vritti are in one locus being illumined by Sakshi or Chidabhasa, whatever may be the case. Here, that Antahkarana vritti is being illumined by Sakshi himself. Parantu Sukhakara Dukkhakara vrittishu Bhaya sadhanapeksha nasti Tasmat Sukha Dukkhadayaha Sakshi Bhasyaha. Just as, again, this is just repetition, for experiences of joys and sorrows, external organs were not necessary. External organs were not necessary. Tasmat Sukha Dukkhadayaha Sakshi Bhasya, that joys and sorrows were Sakshi Bhasya. Brahmakarantahkarana vrittau tu Gurumukhat Shruta Vedanta Vakyasya Shrotrendriya Sambandha Rupa Bahya Sadhanam Apekshate. Tasmat Brahmana Sakshi Bhasyam. A question is being raised. Okay. Let us analyze this question, the whole answer and the further part we will see next time. See, the question is that, okay, I understand. So let me just give you an example so this topic will become clear. A person remembers that his son has died, or any relative, let's say for any relative, and remembering his death, he again undergoes experience of sorrow. Now, can we categorize this experience as smriti or direct experience? Now be careful. We cannot categorize this as smriti. Why? Because that sorrow is very much real. See, that cause is very much real for us. It is not like remembering eating laddu. That dukkha, that viraha, that cause of sorrow is very much real and it is in our mind. So, because of that object being there, that cause of sorrow being there, it again newly generates that dukkhakara antahkarana vritti. So, there we did not require any external or object sense organ at all. It is not just remembering the experience of sorrow, but the cause itself has newly been generated. Contrary to this experience, you see tiger in front of you, where not in cage, in jungle. And when you see in forest tiger in front of you, you are scared. You experience sorrow. You survive that whole experience. Now, again, when you remember that experience, that cause is really not there. You are just undergoing that memory. But in case of the death of your relative, it is new, that cause of sorrow is newly being generated in your own mind. So in that case, without any sense organs, sukha and dukkha can be known, experienced. Yes. But tell me, how did you come to know that you are Brahman? By Mahavakya, Gurumukhach, Shruta Vedanta Vakyasya. So only when a sentence was uttered by a guru, you heard that statement, you cannot make that statement out of your own mind. I know very much you are very much incapable of doing that. So only when you heard that statement through your ears, you came to know that you are Brahman. So you were required to use your ears. If you are required to use your ears, how can you say Brahmajnana is Sakshi Bhasya? Because you used your ears. The answer is very much simple. Yatra विषयेण सह वृत्तिः संबद्धा भवति तत्र प्रत्यक्ष ज्ञानं भवति. Where विषयेण सह वृत्ति comes in contact with Vishaya, there pratyaksha jnana takes place. But and now in Aham Brahmasmi, whatever may be the case, whether there is Indriya, whether we have heard that or not, that analysis is different, because what we listen through our ear is just sound. The analysis of that statement takes place within our mind. So Shabda as a Pramana is a totally different thing. Listening to sound is not Shabda Pramana, but understanding that statement with clarity is that Shabda Pramana. Again, we will not go into details of that right now. But the answer is, yes, we hear that statement through our ears, but the thing is, the Antahkarana Vritti which is formed within our mind, it comes in contact with Brahman. Therefore, by definition, Brahman becomes Pratyaksha. That's it. We will conclude. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.